Dzień dobry, kłania się Mateusz Ciupka, Ruch Muzyczny. Witam Państwa bardzo serdecznie z siedziby Narodowej Orkiestry Symfonicznej Polskiego Radia w Katowicach, gdzie już niedługo rozpocznie się Festiwal Kultura Natura. Jest ze mną dzisiaj Marin Alsop, jedna z najwybitniejszych dyrygentek, która rozpocznie ten festiwal, poprowadzi koncert inauguracyjny, poprowadzi Narodową Orkiestrę Symfoniczną Polskiego Radia. Hello, Marin.
Hi, nice to be here.
This year's edition of Kultura Natura Festival in Katowice is held under the title Journey. In your interview for the Ruch Muzyczny magazine, you mentioned that due to the advancing climate changes, you try to limit your travels. And I was thinking, is it even possible for the artists involved in so many projects to avoid traveling?
Yes, well, I think that was probably closer to COVID when I could limit some of my travel, but it is very, very difficult. And I'm looking forward to the advances that the aerospace is making, you know, in terms of electric and solar powered flights. So I hope that that will come to pass. But, you know, we have to try to do what we can. And of course, since that interview, the world situation has changed so dramatically that the concept of journey takes on a new meaning for us today.
In one of such projects that you are involved in, called the Global Ode to Joy, which you carried out in 2020, and
Yes.
that was the year when this interview was
Oh yes, that's
taken.
right.
You decided to present Beethoven's Ninth Symphony as a journey, and I think this is a very original point of view. How do you understand the idea of journey in music, and especially in symphonic music?
Yes, I think that that's probably why I love music, because every piece is some kind of journey, whether it's an inward journey or a literal journey, programmatic music, or whether it's a journey of the mind. You know, there's so many different kinds of journeys, but I think because every piece has a story, it has a narrative, and some are more prescribed than others, but the beauty about music is that you and I can sit and listen to a symphony, and you go on your journey, and I go on my journey, and they don't have to even align. But after the piece, we could say, so where did that take you? And it can be someplace completely different because it's based on who we are in this world, you know, and our personal experiences.
And do you see your work with the scores? Particularly the symphonic scores are huge in sizes, many times. And you see your work as a journey?
Yes, I mean, I think that that is really a theme probably of my whole life, that it's a journey, and I wouldn't say it's a journey to a specific destination. It's just a journey. And sometimes if I get anxious about where I'm going, then I lose the joy of the journey. So I try to stay as mindful as I can and be in the moment to enjoy, you know, I get this incredible life where I get to work with 100 different super talented people every week. And, you know, if I start to think, oh, what's next week and you know, just try to exist in the moment and be on the journey. Because if you're always thinking, oh, we're almost there, you never enjoy the trip.
During this concert on May 12th, we will listen two works that are directly connected with the concept of journey.
Yes.
Hani Rautavaara 8th Symphony Journey and Dvorak's 9th Symphony from the New World. Let's start with Rautavaara. I think that during last about 20 years, he's become one of the internationally most recognized, popular, frequently performed composers. In Poland, it's slightly different. He is still discovered here, and the concerts with his name in program are special events, I would say. His 8th symphony is a late work. How do you describe its musical language?
Well, I think that it's very listenable first, so people shouldn't be afraid of the music. It's excuse me. It's really you can tell it's from our time because of the vocabulary, but it's also it's clearly a piece by a composer who has done a lot of personal work. Do you know, in terms of exploring himself and his place in the world and how that feels? And so there's some meditative qualities about it, but there's also some dissonance, of course, because we live in a world that's filled with dissonance, but there's also incredible melody and sweeping beauty. So I think people will really enjoy the piece.
The Gramophone magazine wrote about this symphony that it's craggy, organic, frequently sensual, and mostly tonal essay, a calmly listen and light years removed from the restless isms of an avant-garde. Would you agree with this opinion?
I would agree with that. It's not a piece that you'll come to hear and say, "Oh, that's so contemporary." It's really from the romantic tradition.
You think that, in this opinion, this lack of isms is an advantage? This is something that makes this work interesting?
You know, I think isms are labels people put on afterward. So I think the most important part is that Rautavaara is a composer who is true to himself. And to me, that's the best kind of artist to be. You know, you're not following a popular ism.
How do you understand this concept of journey in this symphony? How do you read this between the notes in the score?
Well, I mean, I think it's both it could be a literal journey, but more of an introspective journey with, of course, there's some drama in it as well, because without a conflict, I mean, who's ever gone on a journey without having something go wrong, right? I mean, something has to go wrong, and that sort of makes us appreciate more the beauty of the experience. So it's really, again, it's very melodic, lots of soaring ideas. It brings to mind for me the beauty of the open sky and landscape like this. It's a piece that I think encourages us to take deep breaths, like a great journey, you know, where you take in everything around you.
Don't you think it's characteristic for this special for the Finnish composers? The Sibelius has some similar qualities.
I think so too. I think that there's an understanding of humans' role with nature, and I think they're very much in touch with that through their music.
Dvořák, Ninth Symphony, is a work that obviously evokes many associations with America. It was created in New York, the city you were born. Dvořák lived there for 3 years, since 1892 to 1895, and he was very impressed by this city. I'm interested in your opinion. Has Dvořák been able to capture something universally American in this symphony, something that you feel still after all these years?
I think that this is such a, you know, it's such a, excuse me, it's such a performed piece, often performed piece, but it feels so fresh coming back to it, especially after COVID now. And it's a piece that has I think, a sincerity to it, and an appreciation that is on display for this new culture that he's sort of, you know, just starting to get to know. The thing that I love about the piece is that it's clear that Dvořák is not American, but he's embracing American flavors, American sounds, but he's also missing his home. So for me, it rings true. You know, I travel the world, I love going places, but I miss home. You know, and that to me is really genuine. And we hear, of course, these little motives. We hear the tunes that are derived from the spirituals or from the Native American. You hear them throughout the piece, and I think they really are very evocative of America. But it's always through the eyes of someone who's missing his home.
In one of your interviews, you said that you do not, in fact, like to do something for the first time. But it's just how it goes in your artistic career. What is your attitude toward repertoire, such as New World Symphony, that audience knows by heart? And
Yes.
clearly you're not the first person to perform it.
You know, I try to approach these standard works that are performed so often as though I'm hearing it for the first time. Of course, it's impossible, but I try to put myself in Dvorak's shoes, you know, in that moment, listening to that dress rehearsal. How did it sound? Is that what he wanted? So that I can motivate everything I'm doing.
I asked about this doing things for the first time because many of classic performances and recordings of the Ninth Symphony were provided to us by Bernstein, one of the most important, or maybe the most important artistic figure in your career and in your life. Also with Seiji Ozawa, that always played that he also played the part in your education.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How do you develop your individual interpretation when you have such giants on your back?
Well, I think, you know, I think when you start out, you know, there's a tendency to try to imitate those artists that you admire. But again, in our role as the messenger for the composer, I can't be imitating someone else who carried the message. I have to find the key that unlocks that magic message for me so that I can be true to the composer. So I think one can use all of these recordings as informational and interesting, but I think the audience feels if it's imitative and not genuine. I really believe that, and the musicians certainly know right away, whether you're coming to this with a very committed you know, approach, or whether you're, you know, just on the surface of it.
I think that audience can feel if what you are doing is sincere or not.
I think so too. I really do think so.
This is some magic.
It is a magic, and they don't have to know anything about music,
Yeah.
but they can feel this. And, you know, audiences know when they've heard something special.
Yeah.
They just know it. It's because we're all, that's the beauty again of music. We're all born with music in us.
Yeah, you said one time that we have some competence that we are born with.
Yes,
to hear
it's in
and to
our
feel
DNA.
the classic.
It's every single person. You know, and when people say, "Oh no, I'm tone deaf" or something, I think, I don't know who told you that, but there's no one born tone deaf.
Yeah.
Everyone has music in them.
It is obvious how important in your activities, many activities, is to promote the presence of women in the world of classical music, especially women conductors and composers that are obviously areas still heavily dominated by men. Do you feel a certain kinship with Grażyna Bacewicz, who faced the same fight but over 70 years ago?
Oh, but I'm so excited because, you know, I thought, well, I've just recently fallen in love with her music because it wasn't available, you know, to experience. And I thought, oh, I love this overture. I'll bring it to NOSPR. And I thought, oh, they probably play this overture every week. And I was so excited because they said, no, we don't play this piece at all. So isn't that exciting that it took me from America to bring this Polish work back to Poland?
Yeah, that's fascinating.
That's pretty cool.
That's
well,
cool.
I do think, though, that it's exciting that her music is now getting some attention. Mm-hmm. I'm really excited about that because it's very strong work.
Bacewicz was far from romanticizing music. She was perceiving it as an expression of feelings and experiences. She said music does not express so-called life feelings, but only itself, its own purely musical emotions. What emotions did you find in this overture?
Oh, I think this is a celebratory overture. It feels like it anyway. It's very virtuosic for the orchestra, so they have a lot to do, a lot of notes in a very short amount of time. And I think it's fun because it's not symmetrical. So instead of 4-bar phrases or 2-bar or 8-bar, it's all 5s and 7s. And so it's a little bit cheeky, you know, as the British say. It's a little bit mischievous.
This meeting with Bacewicz Overture is not the first time that you met with Polish music. You performed the works of Stanisław Skorwaczewski, Roxana Panównik, Andrzej Panównik. What brings you close to this Polish repertoire?
I think what appeals to me is the heart and the passion. I feel that comes through, you know, in different ways, of course, because everyone has a different voice, but there's an emotional vulnerability that appeals to me.
And let's say for the last question, with in Poland, your relationships with Polish conductors are extraordinary. You helped many of them.
Interesting? Yeah.
And this year, Anna Duczmal-Mróz was the first Pole to receive the main prize of your fellowship, Taki Alsop Conducting Fellowship.
Yes.
For the female conductors. Anna Słukowska-Migoń, also awarded. Previously Marzena Diakun, great career, also awarded.
Also Marta Gardulinska.
Yeah, Marta Gardulinska, of course. Why Polish female conductors are so special? What differs from others?
But you know, that's what, it's so interesting because we say, why are there so many fantastically talented women, Polish women conductors? I have no idea. I mean, I don't know if they've all studied with the same teacher. I haven't explored that yet, but I really think that it's more about a certain willingness to work at something, and there's a real humility that they all share. They're not conceited at all. They're all about the music. They want to do this. And also, I find that they have a strength that some other women don't have. So I'm a big admirer of the Polish women conductors.
I've got a small proposition for the end. Maybe we will invite our listeners for the concert that will take place on the 12th May.
Please, yes, please. Everybody needs to hear this journey. And what's great is it starts with a piece here from Poland, right? And then we go to the Scandinavian sort of Nordic experience and landscape. And then we go all the way through the Czech Republic. We go through that country to America. So I think it sort of embraces all of us.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.